Hi everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to talk a little bit about portfolio. And I'm completely aware that some of you who are taking this class are majors in media arts and want to really get into graphic design. And I'm also aware that some of you are doing this for an elective credit. But there's also a third, and you're never going to be a media arts major, and you're never going to be a designer. And you learned this, you took this class so you can learn some basics. But there's also a third person, and that's somebody who maybe got into this with that in mind, that it's going to be elective, and that they've found that they really like it, and they want to do more. And so this could really be for all of you, but I realize that it might cater to, two out of the three people, a little bit more. But either way, portfolio is a really important thing when it comes to creative artwork and creative design and the creative process today in today's day and age. So today's going to all be about building a successful portfolio, and it starts today. Your portfolio begins today. That means that don't phone it in. If you have an assignment due, put that extra time into it, put that extra effort into it. One of the things that we try to do when we build the assignments, and not only in this class, but in all our classes as we move forward, is where would that fit in a portfolio? Is a question that we ask ourselves. And does it make sense to put in a portfolio? And in one way, shape, or form, all of our projects do have a place to live in that portfolio. And if you take that concept when you're building your projects, hopefully what that means is, you'll have to do less work to refine these things before you go for a job interview, or before you go, for an interview to, go to a 4-year school or an internship or whatever you might do. So, don't just go through the motions. The portfolio begins today, and you can build it any way you want, but just know that you really want to start it as soon as possible. Only the best work will do. That means essentially that you don't want to put C-level work in your portfolio. So and I realize that in this class right now, we're doing a lot of exercises to learn the mechanics of the software, but by the end of the class, you're going to have a couple projects where you actually get to make a lot of choices, and after that, you'll get feedback on not so much whether you can draw a line or not, but the choices that you made, whether they were positive ones or negative ones, and whether they were successful or could be more successful. And what you want to do is you want to regularly try to refine that work based on that feedback. And things like the cartoon and things like the mythical creature really don't have a place in your portfolio, because again, they're just teaching you how tools work. But some of the projects you haven't seen yet will. And you only want to put the best stuff in there. You do not want to put C-level work in there, because C-level work will not get you a job. When it comes to portfolio, less is more. You can either kill them with quality or you can kill them with quantity. And honestly, quality always wins out. So you want to go ahead and have as much high-end work as you can, but you don't just throw everything in the kitchen sink into the portfolio. Really, a good portfolio is going to have anywhere between 8 and 16 images in it. Enough to get a grasp on what you can do, but not too much that somebody's going to get bored looking at it while they're actually, flipping through your portfolio, looking at it online. Non-client work and non-project work is also acceptable. In fact, I think it's welcomed in a lot of portfolios. When I was in school, I was kind of bad at this in the beginning, where I would learn all these things and do all these fun projects, and then essentially I would not apply them the way that I should. And I wouldn't go and get extra work, and I wouldn't just make things to make things. As time went on, I started to do more of that. And that is the work that really helped my portfolio stand out, because everybody does some of the same projects and assignments in any kind of design school. So when you could step out of that and you could create a solution for somebody that was, maybe not as cookie cutter, then that really makes your portfolio stand out quite a bit. Remember, it's alive. Alive. In fact, your portfolio is a living document. Kind of like Amazon.com is a living document, right? It's not static. It doesn't always look the same. In fact, it changes multiple times a day. And it's also based on, what your likes are and what your dislikes are. Your portfolio is alive too. It is a dynamic document, which means you're going to update it on the regular. What looks really good today is really good today. But in 3 years from now, when your skills far surpass what they are today, what looked really good today won't look so good anymore. And you got to be okay with that. And you got to be able to take things out of your portfolio and regularly introduce new items. That's a normal thing to do when we're building portfolios. So it's not about you build it once and you have it forever. It's you build it once in the beginning and you get an idea of what the process should look like, and then you continually update it. And that's what I mean by it's a live document, that it is dynamic, that it keeps changing. It's just, you do not want your portfolio to be static, because you're really only as good as the last thing you made. You want to explain your work, but don't embellish it. It's perfectly acceptable to talk about the project, to talk about how you got to where you got in it, to talk about the tools you used. But don't make it more than that. Don't make it more than it is. You don't have to talk about how it took you 14 hours to get from point A to point B. You don't need that in your portfolio. If you have a funny story and you want to tell it on an interview, that's fine, but it doesn't need to be in your portfolio, because it probably isn't that funny unless it's coming out of your mouth. So you don't need to embellish the work. You don't need to make it better than it looks. Focus on, I shouldn't say you don't need to make it better than it looks. You don't need to talk about it like it's better than it looks. Focus on making it looking good, or making it look good. In your portfolio, you want to tell your story, and you have the opportunity to do this. Most of the time, we put things like cover letters, artist statements, and also resumes in portfolios. And you can place these things any way you want in your portfolio. Your portfolio could go ahead and it could be very nondescript and only have, images in it, or you can regularly put text in it so somebody has to read through it, kind of like they're reading through a storybook. I think that those ones probably work out better than just the ones with the images, simply because in a way that makes the viewer interact with your story and interact with your images in a more dynamic way. Variety. This is really important. In today's age, we can hire people who can do one task, and that is a tough job to get. If let's say you're a layout artist and that's all you do, that means you just come up with the idea for what the layout's going to look like, the layout of the magazine cover, the layout of the magazine article, the layout of the book, what have you, right? But you're not the person taking the photographs, you're not the person editing the photographs, you're not the person even making the logos. So the thing is while you can get that layout designer job, it's an actual job, it's a thing, you're probably going to be able to get your foot in the door a lot easier if you show that you're somewhat of a jack of all trades. And with that said, you want to create unity within your portfolio. And that could happen through series of works, or it can also happen through just little things like utilizing the same fonts, utilizing the same colors. So you can have unity while at the same time showing variety. But please don't be afraid to say, I really like logos, and to show a few of them. That's quite all right, in fact. And that's another way to unify the portfolio. You want to photograph your work for two reasons. One, while it's all digital data, while you have files like Illustrator files, Photoshop files, or whatever files, right, you can lose those. And so a photograph is going to simply go ahead and give you an extra copy of that work just in case you need it. So that's definitely something that you want. Secondly, the reason you photograph your work is because sometimes it's more than just a two-dimensional object on a two-dimensional piece of paper, right? Maybe that design you made is meant to fold and wrap around a book cover. Maybe it's meant to be a three-dimensional standee. Maybe it's meant to do more than just be on a flat piece of paper. And if it is, then you want to photograph that work, and you want to photograph it in context and almost in action. It'll be another thing that you can highlight when you are building the portfolio, that you have the ability to create these two-dimensional objects, but to know how they wrap in a three-dimensional space. It's a great kind of concept. So if you ever get into that, you want to do that for sure. Make a blog. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this class. There are other classes that we have here at the college that can do that. Or you know what? Go to WordPress.com and come up with a name and just challenge yourself. Make it your weekly graphics blog, and you have to update it once a week. It's a challenge that you're going to throw out to yourself, and go ahead and share it with your friends on Facebook and see who they share it with. And believe it or not, you'll end up with followers because people might like the things that you put up there. And, it's not hard to do. You can literally make a blog in like 10 or 15 minutes. But what's harder than just making the blog is to update the blog. That's the hardest part. Making it, again, super simple. Having the diligence to log in regularly, just like you log into this course, is harder. Okay, it puts the onus all on you. And especially if you have people who are viewers, you want to make sure you're updating the blog, because you may lose them. And that person who maybe is following your blog or viewing your blog, you know what? You never know. That could be a way for you to be able to get a potential client someday. And again, if updating the blog, it might challenge you to be more creative, to actively make things. If you go ahead and say that this blog is meant to, showcase your graphic skills, or your photography, or whatever, and you have to post every Thursday, then that's going to force you to build things outside of class time. So then that way, every Thursday, you're available to, have imagery to put up. Personal branding. This is something that you're going to want to think about. You don't have to think about it today. And again, none of this stuff has to be done today, but it's just, I wanted to put it out there, to put it on the back burner. A personal brand is simply a logo type, if you would, for you. And it's probably the most important branding you'll ever do in your life. You want to, have some sort of brand recognition when it comes to you and your work. And sometimes it's the style of your work that makes people recognize what you work with. But in today's day and age, it's more of that brand. And right now up here, I've kind of got a brand. I don't know how successful it is, but it's somewhat of a brand. It's building a successful portfolio. You saw that large brand at the beginning of the slideshow, and you'll see it again at the end. And the entire time, it's up here in the corner. So just so you remember, you're actually in that slideshow. So it's the same thing from a portfolio standpoint. If you use that personal brand regularly, then they'll always remember that they are on your site, or looking at your portfolio, or looking at your blog, whatever it is. And it just helps you kind of reinvent yourself as time goes on too. You can have a brand, and you can have all the portfolio stuff in there, and then one day you can go ahead and you could redo the brand, and that's quite all right as well. We see large corporations doing that left and right, and it keeps them current. It keeps them moving forward in the right direction, and essentially it's something that can't hurt at all. You want to go physical, and you want to go digital when it comes to a portfolio. We have people that pick one or the other, and that's just not a good idea in today's day and age. A digital portfolio will get your foot in the door to possibly get you an interview, for sure. But you don't want to just sit there and go on an interview and refer to work you've done that they can find online. In fact, when you're interviewing with somebody, it really helps when they have that physical thing that they can hold on to and look through as they're talking to you. And if you can afford it, make a handful of extra ones, maybe smaller ones. They don't need to be as big or as nice as, your main physical portfolio, but make a couple smaller ones. It's a trick that I did all the time, and I would just make these smaller portfolio books that I could leave with people when I was interviewing, and I knew at the time it was more than other people were doing, so it was just a way that I could get a leg up. So when I was out of the room, regardless if I was the first person who went or the last person who went, there was something else there that somebody could flip through, and they could see the kind of work that I did, and know the workmanship that I could bring to the job. And I think that that helped me more than once get a job, to be honest with you. And then along with that, we just don't print anymore. And when you hand somebody a printed object, there's somewhat of it's not like an actual weight, but it's and it's not a spiritual weight either. They just know that it means something. It means more than just like swiping left or right on a picture on Facebook. It's more than that. Another thing you want to do is show your process. So we started talking about process at the end of the last module when you did that road sign project. And, it's all about the ideation, about the conceptual image or the conceptual ideas, and then moving into the imaging after that, starting with your thumbnails and your comms, and eventually you get to your last piece, your final, printed image. And essentially, or not, it doesn't have to be printed, but your final digital image. And essentially, people want to see that process. It excites them because it shows them that you understand that process, that you can go cradle to grave with a project, right? And also that you're not afraid to refine things when they're necessary, and you're not afraid to modify things as necessary per a client's request, or maybe even per your own request. So it shows that you can roll with the punches, and it's something that not everyone does. You see, you can learn Photoshop and you can learn Illustrator sitting in your basement playing World of Warcraft, just like looking at tricks on YouTube, or you can do it in a more formal setting like you are right now, and learn more than just like tricks in software. Learn the reasons why we do the things we do, the theory behind it, and why things like the process are so important. So show that off. I've seen people do it all sorts of ways. I've seen people make a quick video of it, how they build their process. And, that's one of the reasons why Facebook video, I think, is so popular for a lot of creative people, because it shows how they create something from step 1 to step 5. And people really want to see that. They're excited about things like that. And last, but certainly not least, you need to build a successful portfolio. You need oomph. It's that extra something special that will help you stand out when you're building, not only when you're building, but when you're out and you're interviewing for that internship or that job, or possibly for that 4-year college, to see what credits they're going to accept, and it could be something as simple as the kind of case you're using. Maybe like, I knew a young lady in a previous year who had a really cool logo, and she had it laser etched into a metal case. It could be the platform of the online portfolio you're using. It could be, the typography that you're using, even though it's a simple thing, to get a message across, how much care you're putting into it. There's all these different things. It could be the images itself. In fact, I hope it's the images itself that make them stand out past everyone. And hopefully talking about it to you early like this allows you to know that you should need to really put that oomph into your images, that extra something special. Because at the end of the day, when there's a job opportunity, you could really go against somebody who is in this class with you right now, or somebody just like them. And you need to push your stuff so it stands out a little bit more than theirs, okay? It sounds cutthroat, but that's what our business is. That's the industry that we have from a creative standpoint. So you really want to think about that, and you want to go forward as as a designer, as an artist, that you want to put that oomph into your work, and that you want to put that oomph into your displays as well. It'll help you stand out. So that's just a little bit about building a successful portfolio. Again, I realize that this might not be for everybody, and that's okay, right? But for the people who know that this is kind of a thing that they're interested in, you need to know to start now. Don't start in a week, don't start in a month, don't start in 2 years from now when you think you're going to need it. Start today. Start to get the mindset. Every assignment and every project could have a potential place in that portfolio once you get past the cookie cutter mechanics thing that we've been doing lately. So by the end of this semester, you'll be creating some stuff that is portfolio worthy. And in classes that you decide to take after this, if you choose to, the work you will create is portfolio worthy. So you always, always, always want to be prepared for that. Thank you.